Welcome to the Customer Wins Podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of The Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Marla Sofer of Nomi, Adi Clevitt of Business Success Consulting Group, and Abby Morton of Elements. Today, I get to speak with Tracy Lee, CEO of This.Labs. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I've been looking forward to talking to Tracy. She is the CEO of This.Labs, a leading technology consulting firm dedicated to empowering business leaders to execute technology roadmaps with precision and speed. My gosh, we all need that. Trusted by premier clients such as Google, Meta, Stripe, Twilio, and more, This.Labs serves a diverse range of industries from life sciences and financial services to innovative startups. Tracy is also recognized as a GitHub star, Google developer expert, Microsoft MVP, and a Google Women Tech Makers lead, as well as a member of the RxJS core team, which I had to ask what that means, and it's pretty cool, but really techie. So Tracy, welcome to the Customer.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, we had such a good conversation when we met in New York. This is just going to be a continuation, I know. So
yes.
For those who haven't heard this podcast before, I talk with business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So Tracy, I wanted to understand your business a little bit better. How does your company help people?
We love to educate developers, and we do that by embedding engineers into different teams, right? So just traditional staff augmentation and consulting. But one of the things my team is really passionate about is just getting in there, working alongside developers and showing them how they can be better. And
Wow.
our team is just, I've been very fortunate to be able to hire people who have the same passion as me and who are just as excited about that.
Okay, so that shifts my perception of you even more positively. Because I mean, it's easy to say, oh, you guys are, tech consulting and you bring in people, maybe replace
Mhm.
teams or you build new teams altogether. But the fact that you're focusing on how to make people better, that's remarkable. Do you feel like customers have a resistance to bringing on other engineers onto their team because they don't know how they're going to fit and the other engineers are scared or ego or anything like that? Does that happen?
Um, I'm sure it happens a little bit. Like I've definitely seen it in one of the two of the organizations that we've been a part of. But I think because we have such a great reputation in the industry, we're open source contributors. We give back to the community always. We have podcasts, right? We write blogs all the time. So we're kind of already positioned as educators within the industry. So developers are typically more excited than not to be able to work with us because they probably know our engineers or they're like, oh, I mean, again, this thought started from the people who are writing the frameworks and the technologies that we all know and use, right? And so, due to that, I don't know, engineers usually geek out about it and like want to work with us.
I think that's awesome
Mhm.
because I want people to join my team who can make other people on my team better.
Yeah.
And I think quite often, I'm a tech leader too, right? We have a software company for 20 plus
Mhm.
years. I think we often kind of get myopic of like, my team knows how to do it and, augmenting it. I don't know if it's going to work, but at the same
Right.
time, like, how do I encourage my team to get better? So what are some of the techniques that your team members use to help empower people on other teams to do better?
It's funny because I still remember hiring the first designer I ever worked with that actually worked. And that designer, what they did, and the reason why they were so amazing to me, I mean, I still work with them to this day, is that you tell them what you want, and then they tell you and give you what you actually wanted, not what you said, right? And that to me differentiates any sort of person you work with. So designer or engineer, same thing with engineers. I remember my first co-founder, I was a non-technical co-founder. I posted on Reddit that I needed like 3 mock-up images and I would pay $300 for it or something like that. And he messaged me back and he's like, that's not what you need. And he told me what I needed to build. And then he became my co-founder, for seven some odd years. But that's kind of what we do, right? Like we go in there and we try to help engineers understand best practices, right? I think a lot of times as well, it's, we all get stuck in our ways. We all have, different relationships within your organization. You have like different nuanced relationships, if you will. And a lot of the times in larger organizations, things just stall
Hmm.
because there's some sort of either animosity with one team or whatever. So we typically go in and we become peacemakers. Um, I don't know if we do it on purpose, but we're just more about collaborating than um, competing, if you will. So doing that and really trying to understand, okay, this person, like I remember this outsourced team in India of this one organization we went into, and everybody was blaming the team
Oh
in
no.
India. Like, and this project was 6 months past deadline. You're talking about
Hmm.
millions of dollars in the hole. Okay. And when we got in there, we just realized that nobody was just talking to the team and trying to understand what was going on. There was just blame placed everywhere across these three different teams. So just being that like, outside voice of, hey, like, let's try to figure this out. Like, let's be friends. Let's talk. Let's collaborate a little bit more. I think really kind of rubs off on everybody. And that's the type of culture change and culture shift you need within technology.
I agree. And I want to say this for the listeners. I hope you're hearing this the way I hear it, because although we're talking about the engineering, the software development, this
Hmm.
applies across all organization types, right? I mean, everybody needs to grow and evolve, but everybody needs to communicate too. We have to spend the time to learn about each other. And I find too often it'll be thrown over the wall. Like, here's your project, go. And
Yes.
then what? You're left
Yes.
with that kind of situation where they're not necessarily performing as what you wanted them to perform as, right?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing too. You talk about throwing things over the wall. I think a lot of times executive leadership or stakeholders, they're like, we want to get this thing done, and then they think they get it to a certain point. And of course they throw it over the wall to engineering. And engineering implements it. And then you talk about these, 2-year transformations. And all of a sudden at the end, the business requirements have changed because 2 years is a really long time for something to be delivered.
Yeah.
Or it's only 80% of what it needs to be because this one little thing was missed. So I think our team over indexes on pushing stakeholders to what is it you actually want? Is it actually delivering business value? And having those conversations because development is expensive.
Hmm.
And the last thing you want to do is spend tons of money on something that it could have been solved some other way or should have been implemented some other way.
And I think this all comes back to the customer experience, because the
Hmm.
product you're building, whether it's to empower a service you provide or the actual product the customer gets, is a core part of the experience they have.
Hmm.
And having this good understanding between what the customer wants and translating it into actually what's built is really hard.
Hmm.
I've had a product where I would deliver it, I'd listen to the customer, deliver it 6 months later, and the customer say, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And things changed in the industry, it changed in their mind. I have to go redo it 6 months later, and they'd still tell me it's not what they wanted. It's so
Yeah.
hard to accomplish.
I know. Well, I mean, that's why tools these days are so amazing, right? Like, honestly, right now, because, we do get a lot of startups wanting to build exciting things. And that translation, like that whole idea to POC, let's say, that
Mhm.
process, usually it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of people, like business people might not know how to translate it into code, et cetera, et cetera. You need a designer, right? You don't know how to get your ideas out. But
Yeah.
things like V0, for example, which is an amazing tool, v0.dev, if you haven't checked it out yet, you can just put everything you want in there and prompt engineer it, and it will spit out what you need to the point where you're saving like 30 to 100 plus $1,000 on just utilizing the tools that are out there just to get your ideas again onto paper or into code.
Oh my gosh. So I think that's referred to as vibe coding, where
Oh,
you're sitting there
my.
prompting the system to code what you want without actually doing the coding. Is that correct?
It's one step away because I think vibe coding is more you're an engineer and you're utilizing a tool like, let's say, Cursor or Windsurf or something like that, where it's orchestrating things for you and it's building code. This is more, I feel like this is in a different category because I think most developers won't use something like V0 to do that. V0 is more used for like the prototyping aspect of things versus um, I'm going to, you know, I don't know, like migrate X, Y, and Z into this and let me
So
talk
maybe
through it.
maybe the non-coders who are creating these prototypes because it's
Yeah.
their brainchild, maybe that's why they think it's vibe coding, where the reality is the actual engineers are doing the coding with other tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? We have been building something new here,
Hmm.
and my product owner has been using Vercel,
Yeah.
which I think is like V0. He's
Oh,
also used
well,
V0.
Vercel is from V0.
Oh,
Yeah.
is
So
it?
yeah, it's a
Oh,
product of
okay.
V0
See,
or
I'm
product of
ignorant.
Vercel.
I'm still
Yeah.
learning. There's so many things that are changing so fast. But
Yeah.
my gosh, the prototypes he's putting together inside of a few hours are shaving off weeks and weeks of a traditional process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he's probably using V0 is exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's unreal to me. So look, we're talking about AI already.
Hmm.
We didn't even say
Yeah.
the word AI, but this is actually what we're talking about because these tools are driven by large language models and prompting and things like that.
Hmm.
How are you seeing AI beyond this change the coding experience, and how are you injecting that to help customers move towards it? Because a lot of companies are struggling with adopting AI into their practices, including the engineering, right?
Hmm. Hmm. It's interesting because I'm trying to think of something that back from like the Industrial Revolution or whichever other revolution that was many years back, that equates to this. But I think everything that's being built right now when it comes to helping engineers, let's say with AI or I mean we'll stick to the engineering because otherwise we're going to open up too many big boxes. But we're the tools that are available now are fitting the mental model of what we understand. So it's
Hmm.
like, how do you eliminate an engineer? Meaning, okay, now you see five engineers working together, meaning five AIs, let's say, like working together to build this thing. Okay, that's the mental model, and that's kind of like the the furthest from the. I would say those are the people who are like very far along in the curve, right?
Right.
However, I think that even the reason why it's so important to catch up right now is because like that is not even that that mental model that we have of like, oh, I can see five engineers doing the work. Like that's what we understand. But in a year, that mental model is going to shift because we already have that. So like what does it look like in a year? I mean, you don't even know the art of the possible, right? And that's what's really exciting to me, but that's what's also why I think we're so passionate now. Like we're even more passionate now as an organization about helping teams understand what it means to use AI. And so we're spending a lot of time enabling teams on utilizing these AI tools because if you're not like as far along as what I'm saying, right? Like if you're not able to basically turn on agent mode and truly understand like what it means to what is possible, the art of the possible, then in 6 months to a year, that knowledge is already, I mean, it's already like you're already behind, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like I'm constantly running these days. I mean, it's things are just moving so fast when it comes to technology.
It's unreal. It's totally unreal. So Google released Veo 3, and I don't know what's going to be out by the time this episode actually airs. It may be Veo 3.5, who knows? And one of my prior guests, Michael Dedasco, he wrote this brilliant article after reviewing Veo 3, but he equated it to when silent movies went to sound movies. And the first one, I think it was The Jazz Singer or something like that, was the first movie that had sound to it. Veo 3 is the first AI to produce video with sound mapped to it. And the way he said it was like, this is a huge pivotal point because now all the tools that are creating video have to scrap everything and make sure they have audio as part of it because that's the new standard. And that's what's happening with AI across the board. It's like every week, month, there's a new standard we have to live up to.
Or
So
like the
yeah,
black and white to color as well, right? Is
right.
another, yeah, like everything needs to be kind of like colored.
But those things, I thought those things took decades. I mean, I wasn't there, so I didn't really study the timeline. Whereas right now it's happening in weeks and months.
Yeah, it's
It's going
wild.
so fast. How can you not run? So how do you keep up? What do you do?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. And you think about getting older, right? So, when you're a teenager, everything seems like it's so long, right? You remember your summers, they're so long, whatever. And then as we get older, right, we're like, wow, that was so short. It's not a week now, it's not a day, it's months, it's quarters, like companies are saying like, oh, that's going to take a quarter, that's going to take a year to implement, et cetera. And we kind of, get used to our timeline shortening. And I think with technology speeding up so fast as well, and us seeing it before our very eyes, it seems like things are just like fast forwarding as well. So is like our entire timeline just fast forwarding, or is it because we're watching something go so fast? I don't know, but I think that's like more of an existential question.
Yeah. Look, I'll offer a different perspective. When I started Quick, one of my first clients said, after they got my product, they said, I don't have to hire two assistants now. And so it wasn't that we eliminated a job, we eliminated need for future jobs or expansion. And this was not AI, right? So, I mean, tech has been doing this for a long time. And I think, like you talk about the art of the possible, but also imagining the next 6 to 12 months is super, super hard to really predict what it means. I think that we as a society adapt to efficiency, and we're using these tools to say what can make us more efficient. Like the product prototyping can go from weeks to days or hours,
Yes,
and now we can just get
definitely.
more done with less resource or team and et cetera. Obviously, there's cost. We had to buy that technology to do it. So I feel like that's how we're advancing. And it's the other thing I see is there's so many new things coming out. Nobody in the world can keep up with them all. So I think the question just becomes, how do you as a leader continually ask, could this be done with another technology? I mean, it's like the old Apple commercials. There's an app for that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it is quite wild because, like, okay, so right now, my process, for example, for my operations person, the person who manages, I mean, I would call her an administrative person, right? I will Slack message her all the things. And so she basically compiles, my day and all the follow-ups that I had, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But, she was out for a week. And honestly, I was like, well, you know what? Why am I not just dumping all this into Chat GPT and creating like a custom GPT, and then they'll do all the, I mean, right now, I guess I could build agents to do all the follow-ups for me, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But like that's very possible. And how much money is that going to save me? It's going to save me a lot of money to do that, right? But like that reality is possible now. So I mean, again, you
But
think about
it still requires an investment of time,
it
thinking,
does.
planning, and
Yes.
doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of my premise on agents is it worth it for me to build an agent now or just wait weeks or months for somebody to put the agent into the software I'm already using?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it
Yeah.
becomes part of the process already. But I will advocate, I'm a huge fan of custom GPTs. I have a ton of them. And
Yeah.
I build them for my assistant and say, here's another GPT to perform this task. Go use it from now on. And so she'll run it for me, which is amazing.
I love that. I
Yeah.
need
And
I need to do more of that, to be honest, because we think about all these things and all these things that humans might need to be in the loop for, but we're like, I mean, the art of the possible is here now.
I know. So what are you going to do with it? Um, is there a negative to this in your mind? Do you see like a negative trajectory? I mean, I keep hearing things like the leader of some AI company publicly says everything's great, but privately says doom and gloom. How do you feel about this?
I think that we're gonna just have to deal with it. Like what do you do? Right. Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of doom and gloom in the government right now, for example. And it's like, well, what do you do with it? Right. Like you deal with it. It's a reality. So like whatever the reality that we are creating for ourselves is the reality we're gonna have to live in. So when we get there, I'm sure we'll figure it out. Right. I think that like, you talk about this whole idea of doom and gloom and everything like that. But I think that what's happening right now is really like embracing of the culture. So it's no different than people saying like I'm going to embrace social media, or like I'm going to get a cell phone. I'm not going to have a landline anymore. Like those types of things. I think you can make a lot of similar references to what's happening right now to just general adopting of technology.
As a leader of your organization and you hear announcements by companies that say, we're not hiring any more engineers, we have enough. In fact, we're going to cut back. And you're in the business of bringing engineers to companies that need you. Does that
It
pose a
changes.
threat?
I mean, it changes, right? Like, I mean, I think for us, we've never been the type of organization that is a butt in seat type situation. So I think a lot
Uh,
of larger organizations, maybe if you think of like uh I don't know, McKinsey or, whatever, who, it's like, oh, they have 100 people on, like within one organization. Like that is going to change, right? So, okay, you're getting like a 25%, 50% reduction in your workforce, but that kind of cuts away at the sort of, I don't know, the fat that didn't need to be there, if you will, right? What does
yeah.
that mean? And I think we'll see an overcorrection, right? Like you see those stories like Klarna, for example. I don't know if you saw that where they basically about a year ago they fired, what was it, like 700 of their customer service people, and
Wow.
then they realized there was there was an issue with quality, so they just announced recently that they're starting to rehire humans to do
Yeah.
the work.
Right.
But okay, fine. You cut your cost. It was 700 people. Okay, now you're hiring back. Are you going to hire back those 700 people? Probably not. So I think there's still a lot of experimentation, just like within the world, across different industries of, okay, you're going to cut and you're going to try and you're going to experiment and, you're not going to be better or worse for it, right? I think the way we see it is we're going to start seeing more 2 to 3 tiger teams that go into organizations. But I mean, we saw this with the sort of like, I don't know if you call it a tech bubble that burst a few years ago. What did that mean for us, right? There was a lot of layoffs. I feel like the layoffs are still happening as well. But what I think that means, I mean, this all came from, that, and then I feel like the interest rates affected it, et cetera, et cetera. But
Sure.
I think what it translated to in business is, okay, we need to actually start seeing business value for our spend. So what does that mean? Engineers need to be aligned with business values. Anything and anybody that wasn't aligned with business values is probably going to get cut. So,
Yeah.
but if
Well,
you
I
align
think
yourself with business value, then I mean, I wouldn't be worried.
I think that's the cycle of businesses as they mature and get big anyway. And
Hmm.
it's not like, well, first of all, I don't have a scarcity mindset. I believe that if we become more efficient, we'll find more things to do. We'll find more services to offer, more problems to solve. In fact,
Agreed.
I'm seeing
Agreed.
that with AI all the time.
Hmm.
Is there a core specialty at this dot labs that you guys focus on, like an expertise or?
Yeah, it's application development. So it's all things JavaScript, anything related to building applications. We love like large scale migrations. We're really good at it as well, right? Like anything modern technology. I like to say that we bring Silicon Valley best practices to other industries, which is what we're really good at. So I think a lot of industries that we go into, like healthcare, life sciences, fintech, et cetera, they're so focused on those problems within those specific industries. But sometimes you need to like pop your head up and say, well, what's the best practice that Silicon Valley is now, what is kind of like the bleeding edge and what do I need to do to learn from that to make sure that I'm staying ahead?
How much of that is driven by a desire to build AI into those organizations' workflow or their products?
Yeah. I mean, before it wasn't. I mean, we've been using AI this year and I mean, we've been building AI products, for the past 2 years, let's say. But it wasn't until this year that we really started saying like, okay, you know what? We actually really need to go and educate engineers on what it means to use these AI tools because we don't want everybody to be left behind, right? Like we want to create a better place where people are more efficient, more effective, and can focus more on like higher level things. But I think as humans, one of the biggest problems we're going to have is I call it like the 7 stages of AI adoption. But it's this whole idea where, okay, all of a sudden you're fully utilizing AI tooling. And then you're like, you're not doing what, it's like, oh, I have an hour to now hang out on YouTube or half an hour. And then all of a sudden you have like a whole day to do that. And you're like, well, okay, now I have a whole day to do that. But you really need to be introspective as a human, right? As an employee or as a business owner to say like, okay, how do I elevate myself now to that higher level thinking? And I think
Yeah.
that mindset shift is like the biggest thing that we're going to see people struggling with, and something that we're already seeing people struggle with now. They don't know what to do with the extra time. They don't know how to shift their mindset to like doing versus like, now I can do something else.
Man, that is so true. So
Hmm.
true. Anytime in my business when I've had people find that time available to them, they've coasted. And
Exactly. You got to,
when,
yeah.
yeah, and when they finally exit the organization, we look and see the work they were doing. It's terrible. It's like, oh, you only spent 5 hours a month on the phone when we paid you for 40 hours a week to be on the phone. What were you doing with your time? And to me, it's kind of sad because in my organization, I really want people to take initiative and be responsible for their career. And therefore, they've got to look for education. They've got to look for the next thing for them. So if we empower them to do that, but they don't do it, it's not my fault. I mean, I just can't take any credit for what they didn't do. So how do you get them to
Right.
do that?
I think that's the hardest part, right? Because, like, for me, I haven't solved it, but it's like, well, it takes introspection or it takes, I mean, I think that's why we're wanting to go into these organizations as well, because a lot of engineers are scared of, okay, I utilize these things. Like, now what do I do? But now you have so much more time. So I was talking to a product lead at Stripe the other day, and he was saying that as a product lead, he actually is so excited that they have these like product focused, product led engineers, if you will, because he doesn't have to spend time like, defining everything to a T, like doing all the stuff that a lot of product managers typically have to do. He can be very forward thinking. He can have higher level strategy because again, all the stuff that you would typically have to do to manage an engineer, like Stripe engineers are already that. So he doesn't have to do any of that work. So
Yeah.
I think you just have to realize that that is a possibility. And then like, what else? What do you do with the rest of your time?
So I'm going to share an idea. I have been around a lot of artists in my life. My grandfather, my mother, my brother, their friends, etc. Also, one of my friends runs a hedge fund, and he is the artist of hedge funds in the sense that what he did is he reached out to all of the people he admired in the hedge fund world, people you and I have never heard of. And he wrote to them and he went and had lunch with them. He'd fly to New York just to sit down for lunch with them. And when you meet somebody who's that passionate about their skill, their core focus, and they know and admire certain people, they've read those books, you want to be around them. And what do those people do? They become very, very successful because they're constantly pushing themselves. So be the artist is my advice. Learn your craft and find who's better at it and go learn with them and be part of this. So let's go back to you. You are Microsoft MVP, women tech leader. Like you're involved, right? You went out and did these things to get certifications and get
Hmm.
involved.
Hmm.
You had actually said you are a non-technical co-founder, but it seems with those
Yes.
credentials, you are technical.
I was a non-technical co-founder. And then after my last company was acquired, I took a breather, took a break, but then, I was working awful hours. I mean, I was going to sleep at 2, waking up at 7, right? Like we were just running like crazy. I mean, you know how it is to be a founder sometimes. But I sort of like woke up after that journey and was like, well, what do I do now? I'm bored. And so I learned how to code and I got really excited about it. It was a new challenge, right? And I love new challenges. I was kind of bored with, just doing marketing, right?
Mhm.
And then I don't know, I did that for about a year. People started asking me to speak at conferences. I started speaking at tons of different conferences. And then a year into it, I said, well, you know what, maybe I should start a company. And so I decided to start this out of the consultancy. And it's been fun. I've been doing that for 8.5 years now. And I don't know. Now this AI thing is like a new thing that's like getting me really stoked and excited. So
I
life is
know
an adventure, right?
you have to evolve with it.
Yeah.
What's one of the hardest things you went through as a founder to get to this stage?
One of the hardest things I went through as a founder, I think, is figuring out like what that work-life balance thing looks like, right? Everybody talks about work-life balance. You can read, I think it was Sheryl Sandberg's book, like Lean In, right? Like there is no such thing as work-life balance, right? You
Right,
just, right?
right.
But I think you need to be introspective. You need to take time for yourself. You need to figure out like what your actual end goal is, because you're in it, right? But I think for me, like I typically make what I do at work like enjoyable and fun, if you will. So my work and my personal life kind of meld together a little bit. So it just kind of becomes all encompassing. But I mean, it's what I enjoy doing. And if I was going to go, you know, uh, build cruise ships or something like that, I'd do the same thing, right? I'd be like, oh, let's go meet all the cruise people. Like, this is exciting.
Right. You immerse
Yeah.
yourself in it.
Yeah.
I have written an article that there's no such thing as work-life balance as well.
I
And
love that.
I actually approach it from a different perspective. And I ask this question to people: do you work to live, or do you live to work? And the difference is, where do you find your fulfillment? I'm not saying that if you work to live, you don't enjoy your job. And I'm not saying if you live to work, you don't enjoy your life. But where do you derive your fulfillment from? And I have found roughly 25% of the people who answer, they live to work. They're passionate about their career, their craft, whatever. But most people just work to create a lifestyle that they want. And the problem is when you can't answer the question. If you haven't decided which one's for you, then you're in trouble. Then you're in this quandary of what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. I was scrolling Instagram the other day, and they were talking about how a lot of these founders or people who work hard, these high achievers, actually, they spend so much time trying to prove their lives are worth something due to, their younger sort of, I don't know, what do you call it, but like, you know, what do you call it? The childhood traumas
Oh,
of,
sure.
needing to whatever. And I'm like, okay, I mean, like, I guess maybe I could see that a little bit, sure, but I mean, I don't fully subscribe to that idea. I think there's certain people in life who just want to make a difference, like, and that's what I want, right? Like, I want to make the development world a better place. I saw that when I started this thought. I initially started because I just like to bring people together. And in technology, it's kind of crazy, but like all the technology that is built these days, like, is built on just a bunch of people talking and deciding they want to do something.
Isn't
And
that
so
crazy?
yeah, and if you can get those people to just talk, if you can, like, for me, it was like getting the Chrome team to talk to the Edge team, getting the ArcGIS team to talk to the Angular team, et cetera, and getting them to learn best practices from each other, right? Like, you're creating a culture within technology that everything is built on, um, of collaboration
Yeah.
versus like, this is better, that's better, et cetera, and we're all better for it, right? So seeing that type of impact through just having conversations makes me really excited and passionate about just like making people better.
Oh man, I love that. I love that, Tracy. I am passionate about ideas coming to life. And one of the things I love about software is you can pour your brain into a keyboard and bring something out in your
Yes.
computer that works and is different. And you're so right. Because you spoke truth to it. You just said, hey, I want to do this. And I'm going through that with my team right now. I'm like, I want to do this. And they're like, okay, we'll figure out how to do it.
Hmm.
Man, I'm gonna have to wrap up. So before I get to my last question,
Hmm.
how should people find and connect with you?
Yes. Well, I am on X at Lady Lee, so you can find me there, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy S. Lee. You can find me online too at our website, this.co. But I'm pretty out there hanging out, so I'm always happy to chat and talk to people about what they're doing.
No, this is so true because I met you at your event you were hosting in New York, and you
Yeah.
were so open and free and talking to people. It was such a pleasure to meet you. So I know other people are gonna have the same experience. All right, here is my last question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role?
I will call out one person. So, one of my very first investors of this thought was Will Bunker. He's the founder of Match.com. And he always liked to figure out like what when he met me, he was trying to figure out like what I'm motivated by. So the first thing he does when he meets somebody is like, what are you motivated by? Money, fame, ego? Like, what is it that motivates you? And then the other thing he made me realize was, Tracy, you get bored when it's making the donuts. So once something's running, like, you don't want to make the donuts. And he's like, but making the donuts is what makes the money. So like, I can't tell you how many times in my head, like weekly, I talk about making the donuts to myself, right? But I think understanding that too and saying like, okay, well, this is the type of life I want to live. This is where my strengths are. So this is how I should craft whether my company, how things are set up, or my life generally on, what I thrive on. Right. So
Yeah.
I would say he had a big impact.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that analogy because I think so many founders, myself included, suffer from that. Like, okay, I got it. Now I want to move on to the next thing. You guys keep running it.
Yeah.
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 Man, ask my forums team about that. Like I built 1,000 forums and I haven't built since, and they've built 100,000 more.
But you figured it out. That's the exciting part for you,
Right. I solved the problem. Let's move on.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I could keep talking to you, but I always try to keep my show on a time frame. So I want to give a big thank you to Tracy Lee, CEO of This.Labs, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Tracy's website at this.co. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.